Good morning, everybody. It is Monday, May 5th, 9 a.m. Eastern. Just a reminder, we got a couple days left running a free trial to check out our chat room website live stream membership. And have to give the warning again, we will never, ever, ever private message you in a conversation that leads to you sending money anywhere. The scammers aren't going anywhere. They're getting better and better. And they're listening, they're watching our content. So, the most recent one, someone fortunately checked in with our email, is this really you? But the scammer is saying something like, hey, we're running a free trial right now. So they pick up on things that I say in videos, and then the user says, oh, well, Dan said this in a video. This must be Dan. If it has to do with sending money anywhere, it is a scam. And everybody that's listening right now should default anything online with money should be assumed as a scam, and you work backwards from there. It's only going to get worse. AI is only going to get better. All right. So we have the market down a bit on futures open. And I'm going to go over the indices here and some commodities, and then I'll check in on some chart guy member requests. And I'll talk about what I'm watching for today as we start the week. Of course, the FOMC is this Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So that's going to be the main event for the week. But as we look at the S&P 500 futures, we've got a 4-hour uptrend still intact. And the burden is on bears to confirm some downtrends and follow through. Every dip the last couple of weeks has been very brief and led to continuation. So I need to see signs that the bears are showing us something different. And on individual names and individual sectors, I need to see confirmed hourly downtrends for follow through. So right now we're looking at SPY low of Friday is in play first thing, 562.38, and pre-market we're right there. But even if we break that level, futures were nowhere near the low of Friday. So essentially I'm going to be watching the low of SPY and QQQ, regular trading hours from Friday as the first key support, and then I will zoom to the futures chart and watch the low of Friday as the next important level. And again, looking at SPY, if the bears are going to prove things, we need to confirm an hourly downtrend. So wherever we bottom out, the bulls are trying to bottom out at the low of Friday right now with hours of sideways trading pre-market. But if this breaks bull, an hourly bounce will be underway. And again, then it's up to the bears to form an hourly lower high and lower low to show us that they're gaining some momentum. So I've got a couple bull plays I'm watching to start the week, a couple bear plays to start. It depends on, again, whether you want to be aggressive or conservative. And we'll go over those in just a moment. The NASDAQ is the same thing. QQQ low of Friday in play first thing, 484.83. If that breaks, I'm zooming to the futures chart to watch the low of Friday. And the QQQ bears must confirm an hourly downtrend if we're going to follow through. Semiconductors. So charts like the semiconductors and Meta is similar. We'll look at Meta in just a moment. Hourly higher low is still the most likely scenario. So if I want to be an aggressive bull on the morning and I'm saying, okay, SPY and QQQ are attempting to defend the low of Friday. We just traded sideways for 3 hours in pre-market. If that breaks bull, when the bell rings, I want to be looking initially on the bull side of things. If that is the case, there's a handful of names to be keeping an eye on. Number one would be, again, SMH is, for me, I consider anything above 212.11 an hourly higher low. If we're going to see a shift, the bears must confirm an hourly downtrend. But look at a name like Meta. Again, I just want to align most likely scenarios. I want some bull most likely scenarios and some bear most likely scenarios, and then I watch the broader market to dictate which direction I focus on when. So Meta has a lot of space above the low of Friday. We can say there's clear relative strength there because the low of Friday is 578. QQQ just tested it. Meta is nowhere near it. Meta is 2% plus above that level. So anything above the 578 level is an hourly higher low. So if I'm going to be looking bullish on the morning, a name like Meta has my attention. Tesla also has some relative strength pre-market. Again, just in the sense that we're not at the low of Friday like so many other names. I'm watching Tesla for volatility this week. We're either going to see a clear bull break of this resistance zone, 292 to 294, or a clear rejection. And we're still battling here. Again, same deal. If we hold the low of Friday, we have a base of support in the 279s. If that holds, the bears must confirm the hourly downtrend to show that they are gaining some ground. And there is a lot of space for an hourly lower high, anything under 294.78 on Tesla. So again, if I'm looking as an aggressive bull, I'm looking for names where hourly higher lows are the most likely scenario, and I'm watching the open to see if the bulls show up and SPY and QQQ defend low of Friday. If I want to be bearish, personally, I'm watching for hourly lower highs later in the day, whether that's 11 a.m. or 2 p.m. I'm not sure. We have to see how the morning plays out, but there are tons of names where an hourly lower high is the most likely scenario. For example, Netflix, bearish news, Trump talking about tariffs, foreign film industry, yada, yada. But, we can bounce significantly and just look for an hourly lower high after bulls have had complete control for a couple of weeks here. So if I'm looking bearish, I want to find the names where the most likely scenario is an hourly lower high to be the result of the next bounce. A number of names that I'm watching on the bear side are the names that are struggling to get over the Trump pump high. So look at Amazon and look at this resistance zone. So the Trump pump high was in the 192s, and we've been topping out and rejecting from the 192s. We are still struggling at that resistance. So we haven't rolled over for full bear control, but there is a clear resistance zone to be watching. Tesla, as I mentioned, has that as well. That high is a very clear resistance zone, and NVDA has it as well. Again, the Trump pump high up in the 115s, multiple tops there. And NVDA, we're watching that low of Friday in play first thing, 113.37. If that breaks, daily consolidation is then underway. So from a swing perspective, I'm watching these names for who can't break the Trump pump high, because most names have done so already. And the names that have not done so stand out on the weaker side. So I'm going to be keeping an eye out. For example, let's use NVDA. So NVDA, let's say the bell rings and the bulls bounce and keep control on the morning a bit. I'm going to be keeping an eye out for the possibility of a top fish, knowing that I'm watching for QQQ to potentially give us an hourly lower high. And if QQQ gives us an hourly lower high, that can align with a resistance rejection on NVDA. But I know personally, I'm not going to be looking for any bearish trades until we get hourly bounces. So that means it's going to take a few hours, a couple hours at least, for those to shape up. Dollar is a potential weekly bear flag still. Gold is looking for the weekly higher low. We had a 4-hour trend change overnight on gold. I was looking for a long on the miners for a weekly higher low. Again, most likely scenario after a breakout is a weekly higher low. The miners back tested resistance as support and held it. And then we had this 4-hour falling wedge that is breaking bull. Now, obviously, I wish this move happened during regular trading hours because I would have liked to have made an entry. But the move happened without me. So what does that mean? That means that if I'm going to make an entry here, it's going to be on hourly consolidation. So if I'm being a more patient bull, I know a weekly higher low is the most likely scenario. I'm watching the miners for an hourly pullback, and I'm going to be looking long for an hourly higher low. And if I make a long entry there, my mindset is going to be that's either the weekly higher low or I'm wrong. And my stop's going to go under that level. So let's just say we pull back to 48.10. If I like an entry spot there, maybe it's 5-minute oversold conditions, whatever, I need to use a position size where I'm accepting $1.40 of pullback before I would stop out. And the attempt would be for the weekly higher low to try and make a move back into the 50s. So I know that that's a bull trade that I'm watching for eventually. So again, just to break it down, we've talked about a lot so far. We've got aggressive bulls are watching for hourly higher lows on stronger names. Maybe Tesla if it holds that 279, maybe Meta for the hourly higher low, maybe quantum names. Quantum names are showing us relative strength this morning. Huge day Friday. Look at IONQ. we are nowhere near the low of Friday. An hourly higher low is the most likely scenario. RGTI, same deal. QBTS, same deal. So again, if I'm looking long, I want to choose names that align with the most likely scenario, and there are a handful of them where hourly higher lows are the most likely scenario. So aggressive bulls looking long on the morning, hoping that SPY and QQQ defend the low of Friday or break it with zero follow-through into an hourly bounce, which would help shape up the hourly higher lows on Quantum or on Meta. And then from there, I'll be watching for hourly lower highs for bearish entries. And personally, I'm a bit more interested in the bearish entries than the long entries, just because of how I'm positioned, bigger picture, and also because of the bull control we've had the last couple of weeks. I'm watching for the potential of things to cool off a bit in the short term. That said, again, knowing we have the FOMC on Wednesday, from a swing perspective, I'll probably be pretty flat into the FOMC, meaning, I'll have hedges on to offset my long exposure, and we'll see. We got 2.5 trading days before we get there, but again, I do not have high conviction in the short term from a swing trading perspective. I'm waiting for more information, and maybe it's the FOMC that's going to give us that information. So I'm probably not going to be looking aggressive long on the open. I'll be watching the miners for an hourly higher low, and I'll be watching, I'm not sure who yet, for an hourly lower high. And a lot of the decision-making that I make on which names to focus on is after the first 10, 15 minutes of trading, where I can see some clear relative strength or relative weakness of an individual name compared to its sector. And again, I want that to align with the direction I'm looking as well. Oil, testing weekly support after a very weak open on futures, but a bit of a bounce underway. So the 4-hour downtrend is our guide as we are testing weekly support. Bulls are hoping to hold that level and tighten up a bit further, but they have to regain the 4-hour trend if we're going to see that shape up. Natural gas, we're looking for a monthly higher low, bigger picture. So let's zoom in. Weekly bounce is underway. We know anything under 443 is a weekly lower high. So we know a weekly lower high is the most likely scenario. But I'm going to be keeping an eye out for a potential attempt at a weekly higher low. So whenever we top out, I may try for a weekly higher low, knowing we must confirm a weekly uptrend for the monthly higher low to be set. And if I make that attempt, I'll just be risking a small amount of profit from the initial move up on that swing trade to start the year, or I guess that was to end last year. And again, this is an example of me waiting, bears in complete control, waiting for the bulls to prove something to me. Okay, that's a pretty solid weekly bounce. I know a monthly higher low is the most likely scenario. Now I'm interested to start keeping an eye for a potential trade setup where I like the risk reward. But again, it's another patient bull scenario where I would be waiting for weekly consolidation. And there's a number of names in the market. PLTR, I'll be watching for a weekly higher low eventually. We have earnings coming up this week there. I'm watching, as I mentioned, the miners and the metals for weekly higher lows. I'll be watching WMT eventually for a weekly higher low because of how much we have bounced. So again, to keep track of all of this, all the different time frames, all the different names, I cannot suggest right in front of me, I've got a pen and paper and I've gotten it written down. I know the names I'm watching sooner because it's hourly time frames that I'm interested in. And I know names that I'm not really watching right away because they're weekly setups that I'm watching for. And some of them, it's going to take multiple weeks before I'm interested in a trade. And again, it's that conveyor belt of trade concept I talk about where you're essentially lining things up based on how soon the potential setup is going to shape up. Bitcoin weakness over the weekend. Still a daily uptrend, but we are shaping up a possible 12-hour head and shoulders. So here's this key support. The first key support is 92.8. If that level holds to start the week, again, we'll be watching for the possibility of a 12-hour head and shoulders. And if that were to confirm, we would then be looking at weekly consolidation. And again, Bitcoin's another name where we've had a big bounce. Weekly higher low will definitely be on watch as a most likely scenario. To start the week, we're just watching, are we about to start weekly consolidation? And we're going to get that information in the next 24 to 36 hours or so. But keeping an eye on that 12-hour setup. And of course, stocks like MSTR, Coin, etc. are going to be impacted by that. And the burden of proof is on the bulls to regain an hourly uptrend as the first step to trying to get a 12-hour bounce underway. But again, there's a good bit of space for a 12-hour lower high now with how we are shaping up. So again, another name, MSTR, hourly chart. What's the most likely scenario here? Well, if we bounce on the morning, I'm going to be watching for an hourly lower high compared to 401.70. We topped out at 403.90, 401.70, so there's a clear resistance zone just above 400. And I'll be watching for an hourly lower high compared to that $400 zone the next time we get an hourly bounce. Let's see. So Netflix, we talked about the news. Again, the bull side, Meta, quantum stocks, Tesla. Tesla often very quickly shifts relative strength and relative weakness. So I know I'm expecting volatility this week. I don't know which direction I'm looking at. Really, it depends on who's going to win the battle, 279 support or 294 resistance. We're certainly closer to support than resistance initially here. All right. Taking some requests here as we wait for the open. So Apple is a little bit different in the sense that it's already in an hourly downtrend. And that is because of the earnings reaction. So I want to watch the hourly lower high, and I'll say anything under 206.58 is just an hourly lower high, keeping the bears in short-term control. Bears certainly want to break 202.16, the low of the reaction, to keep that follow-through going. Names that are rejecting from weekly EMA 12, similar, as I highlighted, the names that are not breaking the Trump pump high, I'm watching names that can't get over weekly EMA 12. I'm watching healthcare, which is testing and initially rejecting. Again, the individual names I mentioned, Amazon is still under it. NVDA is still testing and under it. And Tesla's a bit of a different setup. But again, if I'm structuring things based on who's stronger and who's weaker from weekly perspectives, from a swing trading perspective, it's names that have bounced 50% plus, like WMT, PLTR, they're all on the bull side, and names that are under weekly EMA 12, they're on the bear side. So Apple is one of those names under weekly EMA 12. 201.59 is a gap fill level to keep an eye on. If the bears do continue the hourly downtrend. And again, another name that has a clear bounce high resistance zone, 212 to 214. So bears are in control of the hourly, and the hourly downtrend is going to be our guide to start the week. So Netflix news, as we mentioned. So back burners. Is Netflix an hourly back burner? This is the first time we've hit hourly oversold from a significant blue sky breakout, V-shaped move. Is this a back burner? No, it's not. Well, yes, with a nuance. We have to be nuanced in our setups because not all setups are created equal. The ideal back burner is when you hit hourly oversold with no news. When there is news or a fundamental reason at play, yes, we can still see an hourly oversold bounce, but it's not your ideal scenario. And it's very important to identify what is the ideal scenario, what is a little bit less than ideal, and what is not ideal, because that determines our conviction. That determines, number one, whether we take the trade or not. Number two, perhaps our position size. And sometimes my conviction will determine the time frame that I'm focused on. So Netflix, if we're going to call it an hourly back burner, we got to put an asterisk next to it because it's not ideal. It is a news reaction that is leading to this drop. And again, we will be looking for an hourly lower high to be the result of the next bounce. And the bears will have to confirm an hourly downtrend if they're going to prove follow through on that headline. But initially, we got the low pre-market 1084 as a short-term support level to be watching. And we know a daily higher low. Well, 1082, you can call that the daily higher low. But very minimal consolidation on the way up. So a new support level will need to be established now that we have lost that runaway bull momentum due to the headline. RDDT, Reddit. So this is the first time I'm looking at this chart in a long time, so I want to mark the clear resistance zone where we have been struggling. So we topped out back here, 124s to 127, and we just topped out on earnings, 126, so very clear resistance zone. You can say we have an hourly downtrend with the earnings reaction in extended hours. We're watching 111.62, key support first thing. If that breaks, we're looking down at 108.50. You can see that's a previous resistance zone trying to act as support. And it's another name where any bounce once the bell rings, we don't have any clear resistance aside from the high of Friday. So that's when that extended hours level matters a bit more to me. It's on very low volume, but with nothing else nearby, I do pay attention to 115.50. And I'll say, okay, bears have complete control if 115.50 is resistance. If that level breaks, I will still consider anything under the high of Friday as an hourly lower high. But again, I want a level that's closer to the current price action to help give me information. I don't want to just say, yeah, the level way up at 125 is resistance. I want something closer in play. So low of Friday, key support, high of pre-market, key resistance, first thing. We'll see which of those breaks first. TLT, again, I don't have clarity on this name, bigger picture. I do still have a long swing that's risk-free from very long ago. But it is a choppy mess for me on a lot of these time frames. So I'll say that we are in a daily uptrend, and anything above 85.67 is a daily high or low. Weekly doesn't have any clarity for me. I can mark resistance because that's clear. The trends aren't clear. That resistance is clear. 93s is a tough level with 3 rejections in the last month plus. But the daily uptrend is really the only thing that stands out to me for clarity as far as trends are concerned on all these time frames. So we're watching for a daily high or low compared to 85.67, and we'll see if the bears confirm a downtrend to try and take back over. But I haven't had any trend clarity on this name for a few months at this point. So again, I just talked about most likely scenarios on so many individual names. I have 0 most likely scenario confidence on TLT. So what does that mean? I don't trade it. ORCL. So clear daily uptrend. Many names are testing their resistance. There's a lot of these bear flags on the way down from end of March, and then we had the tariff big leg down. And this is the resistance zone that we're watching on many individual names. Most names are not testing the high of that bear flag, but it is in play for ORCL. As far as the hourly trend is concerned, we care about the low of Friday. 148.33 is the most important short-term level. I look at a setup like this, let's just say I'm a bull, and okay, we're getting a lower open. I just want the bulls to hold low of Friday. Give me a daily inside bar, that's fine. Just prevent daily consolidation. Bears have a bit of overnight momentum. Bulls just need to hold the line of support. As far as resistance, we're looking at 152.36, 153.06, a couple levels from Friday. But again, on the morning, the information I'm looking at is, can we hold the low of Friday and fend off daily consolidation? When daily consolidation does next happen, anything above 135.57 will be a daily high or low. And that daily uptrend is going to be our guide on the bounce attempt. HIMS. Earnings, have we had it yet? No, earnings are after hours. Gap up, clearly standing out, relative strength. Short-term support, 39.98 for bulls to maintain complete control. We got an extended hours resistance of 42.49 first thing. And then we're looking up at 46.35. So a significant move off the lows, but earnings are going to dictate whether we get another leg up or whether we top out here. But with the most recent leg up that we saw last week, we do now have space where even if it's a bearish reaction to earnings, it is possible to form a higher low compared to where we came from. But hourly uptrend is our guide on the day into earnings. Definitely want to keep an eye out for potential profit taking into earnings. You know, anything that's gone up 30+% in 2 days. Got to figure there's some people out there that want to lock a little bit in before the coin flip of earnings. DIS. So bearish reaction with Netflix on that Trump headline. Fairly weak bounce. Again, look at the weekly. Is this a strong bounce? No, not really. Anything under 102.27 is a weekly lower high. We're not even testing weekly EMA 12. So daily consolidation underway with a gap down open. Again, like Netflix, a lot of space for an hourly lower high to be the result of the next bounce. And short-term support is going to be 88.56. If we lose 88.56, the daily higher low is lost. We've got earnings on Wednesday. So clear daily support in play on the morning, and we know the most likely scenario will be eventually an hourly lower high once a bounce does get going. Already looked at Bitcoin. CRWD, hourly uptrend guide. Another name with a very impressive bounce. So recent highs back in play. Daily uptrend is our guide. Last higher low, 414.41. That's the most important daily support. Bulls are going to try and hold low of Friday, 434.40. It's the most important short-term support. And if that support holds, bears will need to confirm an hourly downtrend to try and shift some momentum. So another name where the goal for the bulls is just hold that low of Friday and try and fend off the daily consolidation. Goal for the bears, break that low of Friday, confirm an hourly downtrend to try and follow through. Spot is a name similar to Meta where an hourly higher low is the most likely scenario. So anything above 612 is an hourly higher low. That means the bell can ring, we can drop multiple percent and still be holding low of Friday. If we hold the low of Friday, the bears must confirm an hourly downtrend to show us something is shifting. And of course, resistance zone is the high of Friday. If the bears prove something, we're going to look for a daily higher low, anything above 540, as there's a lot of space for that to form. And again, it's another name with the significant recovery back to where we were. So definitely on the longer term, stronger side due to that recovery. I thought they had bad earnings. They must have had a solid bounce from bad earnings, huh? Gap down, V-shape. We already looked at gold. APH, another V-shape recovery back to higher highs. Very impressive. Daily higher low support. And the low of Wednesday from last week is the daily higher low on many individual names. So 74.31, key swing level if you're looking longer term time frames. Shorter term, we care about the low of Friday, 78.76 as the most important level. Bulls just want to hold that to keep the hourly uptrend intact. And if bears are going to prove anything, we've got to break that level and we've got to confirm an hourly downtrend. Doesn't have to happen in any order. We can break support and then confirm an hourly downtrend. We can hold support and then confirm an hourly downtrend, but bears need to have those two check marks to start this week. And I'm speaking on all individual names and sectors. You got to break the low of Friday. You got to confirm an hourly downtrend in whatever order that transpires. All right, let's check back in on the indices as we get ready for the open. Still sideways here for the most part. So again, very short term. What I care about first thing, 485.02 resistance and 483.68 support. Which of those breaks first? We're closer to resistance. If that breaks, the hourly bounce is underway. And I then keep an eye out for hourly lower highs on the names where it's the most likely scenario because they pulled back enough to create the space for an hourly lower high. Again, I'm not going to be looking aggressive bull first thing. If I were, I'd be looking at a quantum name and either Tesla or Meta. And in the first 3 minutes, I'm going to get some information from Tesla and Meta to see whether we get some relative strength or weakness. And I'll let you know. Bring on the bell. So 485.02 key QQQ resistance, first thing, yet to break it. Bears want to see all major sectors break their lows of Friday. XLF broke the low of Friday. So QQQ is testing short-term resistance. Tesla is at the low of the day while QQQ is at the high of the day. That's an initial sign of relative weakness. All about 279 support there, but relative weakness first thing. QBTS high of the day with QQQ, a little bit of relative strength, again trying for that hourly higher low. Just running through the quantum names real quick. I'd say QBTS and IONQ are a little bit stronger. IONQ has earnings midweek. At this point, QQQ broke pre-market resistance only by some pennies. Definitely need more follow-through. We're still range-bound at this moment. So Tesla bears, showing its relative weakness first thing, would love to see QQQ roll over and break the low of pre-market here and have Tesla test that 279. But that relative weakness standing out glaringly in the first minute. XLV low of Friday, 137.55 coming into play. NVDA has a decent bounce underway, a little relative strength there. So hourly bounce I would consider underway. We would have to fail the high of Friday and break the low of today for NVDA bears to follow through. As of right now, it's a small gap down open, and bulls are buying that initial dip. So very clearly, if you just put Tesla and NVDA next to each other, you can see they have significant difference in relative strength and weakness. Now we're just waiting for information. Is the NASDAQ going to break this sideways range bull convincingly or hit fresh lows? We're still battling resistance as Tesla keeps fading slowly towards support. Quantum names are looking like daily inside bars are very likely, which would have me lay off personally day trading them, knowing their ranges are likely to be constricted. Tesla continues to hit fresh lows while QQQ is near the high. I know I keep saying it, but I can't stress enough how significant relative strength and weakness has been to my trading the last few years once I really started to incorporate it. There were multiple times last week where I was looking in the wrong direction in terms of shorting an individual name, but the indices held strong, and it still was a winning trade because of the relative weakness. It's very forgiving when you're trading in that direction. So we could say Tesla bears are positioned real well if the NASDAQ weakens, but here it is at the high of the day. Trying to follow through over the pre-market high. That has NVDA testing the high of the day again. Quantum names now showing relative weakness as well. Still going to look for hourly higher lows there, but again, inside bar is very likely. NVDA new high, its resistance is going to be up at 115.03. Meta trying to make it back to the high of the day. So with the bull break of the pre-market range being more convincing, for me, the QQQ hourly bounces underway. Anything under 490.91 is an hourly lower high. And so again, if we are going to see bears prove something today with the weaker open, it will need to be fail the high of Friday, break the low of pre-market. Netflix hourly bounce underway. Plenty of space for a lower high. We're keeping an eye out for hourly lower highs on a handful of names. So if I'm a Tesla bear, I don't love that the NASDAQ is bouncing. But if Tesla can, say, form a 2-minute lower high on a bounce, and then the NASDAQ sees some consolidation, that can potentially help Tesla get another leg down. SPY, did we break low of Friday? Yes, but only by 30 cents. Right now we have XLF and QQQ. They're inverse, where QQQ is at the high of the day, XLF is at the low of the day. And XLF is clearly the lead bear in terms of major sectors. And it's clearly semis leading the way on this bounce. MSTR is weak, not benefiting from the QQQ bounce. Daily consolidation clearly underway there. Meta still failing a new high of the day. Gotta break 592 to try and shape up its hourly higher low. So MSTR and Tesla are on Team Bear at the moment. Microsoft is a stronger NASDAQ name. Fresh lows on MSTR, while QQQ nor Bitcoin are hitting fresh lows yet. PANW. Bounce underway. Anything under 189.27 is an hourly lower high. A lot of these little gap down opens with buying. First thing, SMH looks very similar. So again, it's bears needing to follow through with hourly downtrends if daily consolidation is going to go anywhere. So later this morning or midday or whenever it is, we must set hourly lower highs and then roll over to lower lows if bears are proving anything to us today. Tesla back to the lows with QQQ pulling back. So here's a key Tesla support test. If we're going to see relative weakness shift to relative strength, this is where it would happen. And of course, the bears are hoping to blow right through 279 for a convincing break. Key support test on Tesla here. Bitcoin has hit a new low since the bell rang now. So I don't really like anything from the long side right now. Keep an eye on Meta to see if we can break 592, but initially rejecting. Amazon trying to be a lead bear. Gap to fill 185.05. I still consider Tesla holding support. Tesla bears are going to need the NASDAQ to hit a new low of the day to help. Just checking on these miners to see if that hourly consolidation I'm watching for is underway. It is 5-minute oversold. Wow, way weaker than gold since the bell rang. Tesla bears getting a little bit more follow through. They want to break 279 and have QQQ break the low of pre-market ideally. But again, we saw that. How long did it take to see that relative weakness in Tesla? 1 to 2 minutes? After 279, the next level would be, there's an extended hours level at 277.20. NVDA is still holding well, considering QQQ just dropped to a new low of the day. NVDA is trying for the 5-minute higher low. Meta's back to testing the high of the day. So if I do have to look bull, it's those two. I do still consider Tesla holding support. We got to break by more than just pennies here. Very clear NASDAQ support zone still being defended for the last 5 hours. ADBE. Very strong morning. All about the high of Friday, 383.56. Currently testing that level. Bulls will want to confirm a 5-minute uptrend when we do top out next. But not many names testing high of Friday. So it does stand out for that reason. Definitely a lot of work to do on the weekly chart on this bounce. Again, weekly EMA 12 is resistance. Nice follow through on Meta once we broke that high of the day. Quick $2. So that's the hourly higher low being set with a quick little 5-minute uptrend. Microsoft, first major name to go green on my screen. Still holding its earnings bull momentum. So I'm going to keep an eye on these miners through the morning. We did just confirm a bear flag with no follow through on GDX. We did fill the daily gap. Again, quantum names got weak right after the open, but pretty short-term oversold. And again, we are definitely going to be looking for an hourly higher low and tightening range. Our GTI giving back a bunch, really crushed. Watching the 5-minute stair step there. Tesla bears are hoping it's just a 5-minute lower high, but if QQQ recovers to a new high of the day, it's only going to hurt the Tesla bears. They're still keeping control. SMH still the lead bull, 5-minute higher low set. That's our new key short-term support. XLF and XLV are near the low of the day, so it is SMH as captain a team bull on the morning so far. Meta new highs. So again, the perspective there. Hourly higher low set. Now it's all about the 604s. QQQ back to a high of the day test. Netflix continuing its bounce, so it did end up being a nice hourly oversold bounce. 5-minute stair step. Looks like we're filling the gap. Gap fill is 1133. So just missed filling it at the moment. It's a good bit of volume. Tesla's still weak, struggling to get any kind of 5-minute bounce going. Bears are hoping that the NASDAQ is a rising wedge as we just broke the high of the day with no follow through. Tesla back to the low of the day very quickly. Getting that follow through now. $277.20 next level. So ideally at this point, any Tesla bears have taken a little bit of profit and are in complete control of this trade. The 5-minute RSI is in the teens, so we know we're going to get a short-term bounce sooner rather than later, but we've got a clear 2-minute downtrend guide, and we've seen enough relative weakness that this is the kind of setup where I want to leave a runner to see what bears can do with it. So 2-minute downtrend is going to be our short-term guide. Eventually, we'll look for a 15-minute lower high at some point later morning or midday. Again, 15-minute RSI crushed as well. So the way my old trader brain would work and how many people's brains still work is, well, Tesla 5-minute and 15-minute RSI is crushed. I'm going to try and play for a bounce. We will bounce eventually, but it's been showing so much glaring relative weakness that, again, it's like you're trying to swim against the current versus going with the current. And so much of what I do and the names that I look at is dictated by that relative strength and relative weakness. So yes, short-term RSI levels will cool off eventually, but I don't have high conviction in nailing that bottom with how much relative weakness we've been seeing. If I'm a bear in the indices, I really want the lead bulls to weaken. I want to see SMH lose 5-minute support and NVDA as well. So I can be a Tesla bear, but I'm keeping an eye on the semiconductors and hoping that they help my position. Netflix did officially fill that gap. We're going to look for a 5-minute higher low versus the low of the day next consolidation. Aggressive bears are watching that 5-minute stair step and hoping that marks the hourly lower high. But we would need to see some pretty significant retracement size. GDX 5-minute bear flag or 2-minute bear flag confirmed with no follow through, getting the 5-minute bounce underway. And if the bulls can get a big enough 5-minute bounce, we'll then watch for a trend change to try and shape up back to the bulls to try and set that hourly higher low. CEP getting crushed. Top is clearly set for a long time there. Daily stair step breaking Friday, marking that top. Just getting to hourly oversold into that $30 support zone, but a lot of space for a daily lower high next bounce. IONQ with a significant 5-minute bounce, the best in the quantum names. Again, trying for that hourly higher low. Equilibrium watch. Meta still holding well, as is Microsoft. NASDAQ's not going to see any meaningful weakness as long as SMH keeps forming 5-minute higher lows. EOG 5-minute bounce underway. So I'd be on the 2-day to condense it down. If you're looking for a higher low, we're looking for a 2-day higher low. And baby step 1 is an hourly trend change back to bulls. So we don't even have an hourly bounce underway right now. We need a 5-minute uptrend to get an hourly bounce underway. We need a big enough hourly bounce to create the space for an hourly trend change. So a lot of work to do on the shorter term time frames to be shaping that up. Meta with another new high with QQQ as well. We now have XLF and QQQ at the high of the day together. That's a clear, distinct shift. On the morning, they were inverse. And now they are shifting to favor bulls by both being at highs together. So we got a QQQ 5-minute uptrend guide, an SMH 5-minute uptrend guide. Meta's back to the green. Tesla is cooling off those short-term extreme RSI levels. At this point, if I'm looking short on Tesla, it's going to be for a 15-minute lower high. I got to wait for RSI levels to cool off if I'm going to like any risk rewards set up there, or even an hourly if I want to be patient. Anything under 295 is an hourly lower high next bounce. Still a 2-minute downtrend, but bulls are going to be attempting to shape up a 2-minute inverse head and shoulders to cool off 15-minute RSI. IONQ high of day test. Easily the best bouncer there. Looks like bulls trying to buy that dip before earnings. RGTI and QBTS are still potential 5-minute bear flags at this point. So if we fail the high of the day, IONQ will be on 5-minute equilibrium watch. But again, just waiting for information. We're just getting information. And now we know IONQ is the clear lead bull out of these names on the morning so far. Meta's going for 600 psychological. We got some data. So initial data reaction, helping some bull follow through here. Again, 5-minute uptrend is now our clear guide. Hourly bounce clearly underway. If the bears are going to prove anything today, SPY and QQQ must fail the high of Friday and break the low of pre-market to confirm an hourly downtrend. If they don't do that, bulls are just fine in the short term. HHH. Gap up open, profit taking. Hourly high or low is the most likely scenario. 5-minute trend is our guide. Clear 5-minute downtrend from pre-market through the open. We must see a 5-minute trend change shape up back to the bulls for an hourly high or low, and then we will scout an hourly low or high because of the size of the retracement. But the 5-minute downtrend is our clear guide, and anything under the high of the day will be a 5-minute lower high. Tesla cooling off that RSI. Meta's going back towards that high of Friday. Big time move. 604.34. How could we know Meta Bull was one of the names to be watching? Because an hourly high or low was the most likely scenario. We were not close to the low of Friday like so many other names. My happy place as a trader is when I have a short on a relative bear and a long on a relative bull, and then it doesn't matter what direction the market goes, I'm going to have a winner one way or the other. We didn't know the direction the NASDAQ was going to break that sideways range first thing. It's now more convincingly bull. But again, not going to lose sight of keeping an eye out for hourly lower highs later this morning and midday with the 5-minute uptrends as our guide, watching for potential bear patterns to present themselves, whether it's a head and shoulders or a rising wedge or just losing the 5-minute uptrend. UNH. So daily bounce underway. Stair step bull break. Tons of space for a lower high, anything under 439. you can say we have an hourly uptrend confirmed. And bulls need follow through. They need to keep this hourly uptrend going. We got a little resistance level, 403.78, which we are testing. But bulls need a couple days of follow through here if we're going to have any conviction that a earnings bottom is set. So that hourly uptrend needs to keep on going for a few days here. QQQ, 5-minute pullback here. Anything above 484.66 is a higher low. Bears are hoping it's a big enough pullback to shape up a 5-minute head and shoulders. I would have wanted more pullback there, but maybe we get it. I'd be wanting something like this if I'm a bear. But still watching the 5-minute higher lows. Can I talk about cooling off RSI and how it would relate to scouting a short? So essentially it helps me, if I'm looking at Tesla and the 5-minute RSI, let's just go back in time 10 minutes ago. The 5-minute RSI is in the teens and the 15-minute RSI is in the teen, or at 20, just around the teens. That tells me if I'm going to be looking short from here, I need those RSI levels to cool off. I don't want to be entering short when we have short-term extremes because I know we're more likely than not to see a short-term bounce to cool that off. So if it's the 5 and the 15-minute crush, I want the 15-minute to cool off. So that's the time frame where I'm going to be scouting that lower high. Aggressive bears are scouting a Tesla 15-minute lower high. Patient bears are waiting for the hourly. So to answer your question, it helps dictate which time frame I look at. So we are going to be watching QQQ here for a potential 5-minute head and shoulders. Netflix 5-minute stair step has broken. Miners are following through. Space for a 5-minute. Oh, we double bottomed. We already confirmed a 5-minute uptrend. So here's an example of my trading results show me that when I'm live streaming, I'm not as good a trader as when I'm not live streaming. For obvious examples, GDX hourly higher low is one of my top watches on the morning. I'm answering questions. I'm taking requests. I didn't see a double bottom because I don't have the chart up in front of me. It's very obvious why I'm not as good a trader when I'm doing this for my own personal trades. So the question is, am I looking for an hourly higher low entry? Yes. But because I'm live streaming, I know that I am inhibited. So, if I had the chart up and I saw GDX hit 48.05 to the penny at the low of the day and then bounce 10 cents, maybe I jump in real quick right then and there and just stick a stop under the low. But I missed it as I am distracted doing other things. It's just the way that it goes. I'm a better morning trader Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday than I am on Monday. So that keeps me really extra picky, right? Why am I going to put more capital at risk when I am disadvantaged? So it essentially just means I've got to be extra patient. So at this point, I'll be watching for maybe a 15-minute setup that gives me an opportunity. GDX, if we fail the high of the day, it's a 15-minute lower high. Maybe we tighten up a bit, and I look for a higher low off the low of the day. my goal when I'm live streaming is to try and give people information to help them with their own trading. My personal trading while live streaming definitely takes a back seat. I'm not going to repeat everything for HHH. It's a clear 5-minute downtrend. We have to change the 5-minute trend for an hourly high or low, and then we scout an hourly low or high. New 5-minute lower high just set at 70.44. QQQ still a 5-minute uptrend. Burden on bears to change that. Same with SMH. Tesla bears still keeping control. A 15-minute bear flag is on the table there. But any bear setups at this point really want to see QQQ confirm a 5-minute downtrend to try and shape up the hourly lower high. MSTR is staying on the weaker side. All of crypto stocks are weaker considering QQQ and Bitcoin are not at their lows. Apple relative weakness is definitely standing out. It's just following through with its bearish earnings reaction momentum. It too is crushed on the short-term time frames. But the hourly downtrend remains our guide. EMA 12 has been driving it down the last 2 days. Definitely would put it in the lead bear grouping. It's easiest to see relative strength and weakness when you're doing something completely opposite of what your ETF is doing. So QQQ being in a 5-minute uptrend and Apple at the low of the day is glaring. So zooming back into QQQ, if we are going to shift here in the short term, it would be this head and shoulders. This is the 2-minute. Got to roll over and break 485.16. And that would be the first indication of a potential hourly lower high. NVDA is quickly weakening compared to the NASDAQ. SMH lost the 5-minute uptrend, so our lead bull sector is weakening, which is what bears want to see. SMH will still need to confirm a 5-minute downtrend eventually. Tesla back to a low of the day test. When QQQ loses the 5-minute uptrend, I'll probably just grab a little bit of an SQQQ position with the NASDAQ high of the day as my stop, and the mindset that's either the hourly lower high or I'm wrong. Stick that in my swing account. All about the 5-minute uptrend. Bears would love to see NVDA hit a new low of the day. Tesla's already there. MSTR is there. Amazon had a turnaround there. Trying to make it back to the high of the day after being weaker on the open. Let's see. I believe we have some more data this morning. Nope. 10 a.m. was it? At least in the short term. Generally, I watch the NASDAQ more than SPY just because the names that I trade, it matters more. Tesla, big tech, semis. QQQ still keeping it together for now. 5-minute higher lows. Amazon back to the high. Healthcare sector double bottomed at the low of Friday by a few pennies. Descent talks at 11 a.m. Thank you. Could see some volatility on the 5-minute time frame when that happens. So again, at this point, I'm just patiently watching this 5-minute uptrend on QQQ. When it is lost, I will grab a short with a stop over the high at that point, wherever that is. On a 5-minute QQQ downtrend, would you have any interest in selling a call spread? I previously mentioned exploring selling premium. No, not at all. That's like being in with very small capital, and all of that's going to be opportunity cost, where I am not making money doing my bread and butter while I'm focusing on that. So currently I'm in a really good consistency streak, so the last thing I'm going to do is stop my bread and butter to try something new. Time to try something new is when you're in a rut and stuck, or you've got a life situation that's leading to give you a window of opportunity. Tesla new low, no real follow through just yet. Anything that's a bear, whether it's Apple or Tesla, really needs QQQ to set this hourly lower high to help follow through. When I look to enter on a 5-minute downtrend, do I enter right on the break of the previous 5-minute high or low, or do I look for, say, a 2-minute lower high? It definitely depends on the setup. Generally, I'm going to be looking for a lower high. Whether it's, if I recognize a rising wedge, I'll play that. I like playing rising wedges. But the risk reward is best when your stop level is nice and close by. Because I'm thinking more of a swing perspective, then I'm okay entering a short-term support break because my position size is going to be smaller. If it's a day trade, I want to be entering right near resistance. I want to know if I'm wrong real quick. Let's just say if I were top fishing there as an aggressive bear, I'd be out half right now and be risk-free on a day trade size position. I'm thinking more swing trade. I want to give myself a chance for if the bears do form an hourly lower high and confirm an hourly downtrend later today, then I have a swing position. So yeah, if I were I would never enter a day trade position size on a 5-minute support break unless it's a stair step or something. Just because the risk reward is much less favorable in the short term. Tesla and MSTR back to testing the low of the day. NVDA is getting close. Bears would love for it to join the new low. Tesla again, 277.20. Not a meaningful level, but that's the next level I'm watching. Then down to 275.14. Tesla bears couldn't be happier with the pretty much completely inverse 5-minute chart to QQQ on the morning so far. One possible scenario, if I enter a short on a loss of the 5-minute uptrend, QQQ could potentially form a 15-minute higher low and confirm an uptrend to stop me out. Want to be looking at things from both sides. But I'm okay with that risk. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. So we're looking for hourly lower highs on many individual names, sectors, etc. And we know the burden of proof is on bears. We've got to set hourly lower highs, and we've got to break the low of pre-market on SPY and QQQ if they're going to prove something today. Otherwise, it's a dip, and the bulls buy the dip, and it's pretty minimal consolidation. Tesla has a ton of space for an hourly lower high to be the result of the next bounce. Still short-term downtrend guides there. Let's see if that meta relative strength shifts now that we're battling the high of Friday and rejecting initially. The number one reason that relative weakness or strength will shift midday, mid-morning, whenever, is when the individual name has a very clear level that gets defended. All right, appreciate you checking in. Check out free trial. And I'll see you members in the chat room in 2 minutes.